The penthouse was empty, except for him. A hollow ache, I know it well. Success, a tailored suit, a view that swallowed the city, but inside, nothing, just the echoing silence of a life meticulously crafted yet profoundly false. Do you ever feel like you're acting, like the person you present to the world isn't really you? Like a perfectly sculpted mask concealing a face you've forgotten? This isn't about self-help, it's about survival. Jung called it the persona, the carefully constructed facade we build to protect ourselves from the world. But what if that mask is slowly killing you? What if the price of your composure is your soul? That penthouse, it felt like a mausoleum. A monument to a life I'd meticulously built, brick by painstaking brick, only to find myself standing amidst the ruins of my own making. The view was breathtaking, a panorama of glittering lights stretching to the horizon. A fitting backdrop, I suppose, for a man who had everything and yet felt utterly hollow. It wasn't just a lack of fulfillment, it was a profound disconnect. Like looking into a mirror and not recognizing the stranger staring back. That stranger, polished and refined, was the persona. The carefully crafted mask I'd worn for so long, believing it to be the only way to navigate this brutal, unforgiving world. And it almost worked, almost, until the cracks started showing, until the facade began to crumble, revealing the fractured self beneath. The weight of it, of maintaining that perfect illusion, became unbearable. It was a slow suffocation, a death by 1,000 paper cuts. Each carefully chosen word, each practiced smile, each perfectly executed gesture chipping away at the real me. God, how I hated the real me back then. The man in the mirror was a stranger, a creation, a construct, and yet he was all the world saw. He was all I allowed the world to see. But somewhere deep down a rebellion was brewing, a quiet defiance in the face of manufactured perfection. The question was, could I hear it before it was too late? Because the emptiness was gnawing at me. A deep, gnawing hunger unlike anything I'd ever experienced, and the city lights, instead of dazzling, seemed to mock my carefully built emptiness. The price of the persona, it wasn't just success, it was my soul. That hollowness, it wasn't just emptiness. It was a void, a chasm where a whole part of myself should have been. It felt like a betrayal, a self-betrayal even. Like I'd been living a lie, a carefully constructed performance for an audience I couldn't even name. And the worst part, I'd almost convinced myself it was real. Then, like a ghost in the machine, the shadow began to stir. Carl Jung called it the shadow self, the hidden, often repressed aspects of our personality, the parts we deem unacceptable, too dark, or simply too inconvenient to acknowledge. The anger we bury, the vulnerability we shield, the desires we shame, these aren't anomalies, they're integral parts of the human experience. But society, with its narrow definitions of masculinity, its relentless pressure to conform, pushes us to bury these aspects, to mask them beneath a carefully crafted persona. It's not just about what we show the world, it's about what we actively hide from ourselves. Think of Arthur, a 68-year-old retired surgeon in Boise, Idaho. He was the picture of success, respected, wealthy, a pillar of his community. But beneath that polished exterior lived a man consumed by a secret, simmering rage. Years of suppressing his frustration, his resentment at the demands of his profession, had twisted into a bitter, pervasive anger that poisoned his relationships and fueled a growing sense of isolation. He was a coiled spring waiting to snap. His persona was the carefully wound coil, his shadow, the pent-up energy threatening to unravel it all. This isn't about some inherent flaw. It's a survival mechanism, a desperate attempt to navigate a world that often feels hostile or indifferent. We build these masks to protect ourselves from judgment, from rejection, from the pain of vulnerability. But the price is high. The persona becomes a prison, a gilded cage built from our own insecurities. We start to identify with the mask, forgetting the face beneath. The shadow, denied and repressed, grows stronger, more menacing, whispering insidious doubts and fueling self-destructive behaviors. It's like a subterranean river, carving paths of destruction beneath the surface of our lives. And as long as it stays hidden, it keeps eroding our foundation. The shadow isn't evil, it's simply unintegrated. It's the unacknowledged parts of ourselves, yearning to be seen, to be understood. It's the potential for both immense destruction and profound transformation. And until we confront it, we will never truly know ourselves. Until we integrate our shadow, we're merely actors playing a role in a play we didn't write. The question is, are you ready to rewrite your script? Are you ready to face the abyss? That abyss, it's not a place, it's a feeling. A gnawing emptiness that whispers of a life unlived, a self denied. And the mask. That perfectly sculpted facade, the persona, is the architect of that void. It's not merely a disguise, it's a prison, built brick by agonizing brick from the fragments of our deepest fears and unmet desires. Jung saw it so clearly, this battle between the mask and the man beneath. He called it the shadow, that submerged realm of our unacknowledged selves, the repressed emotions, the forbidden yearnings. The parts of us deemed unacceptable, too dangerous, too vulnerable to show the world. And so we bury them, shoving them down into the darkness, hoping they'll stay hidden forever. Hoping no one, most of all ourselves, will ever unearth them. Think of Arthur, a 72-year-old retired judge in Charleston, South Carolina. His persona, unwavering authority, impeccable judgment, a pillar of the community. Behind the gavel, however, simmered a volcano of suppressed rage, buried under decades of societal expectations. Expectations he had meticulously, perhaps unconsciously, imposed upon himself. He felt like he was performing a role he had no choice but to play. A life rigidly controlled to avoid the pain of vulnerability, to avoid rejection. And what was the cost? A lifetime of quiet, simmering resentment, a heart hardened against joy, a soul adrift in a sea of lonely silence. A slow, suffocating death by composure, wasn't it? The outward appearance of success hid a man whose life felt like a prison made of his own self-imposed perfectionism. The mask operates on a simple, brutal mechanism: repression. We bury parts of ourselves, the anger, the sadness, the vulnerability, to protect ourselves from judgment, from rejection, from the potential pain of exposure. It's a coping mechanism, a survival strategy. But the repressed energy doesn't vanish. It festers, it twists, it transforms into something else. It becomes the shadow, a malevolent force that operates behind the scenes, sabotaging our relationships, our happiness, our very sense of self. Like a parasite feeding off the very life force it's meant to protect. A man becomes a stranger to himself. Isn't that terrifying? The persona is a carefully constructed defense, a fortress against the perceived dangers of the world. But what if that fortress is trapping you? What if the price of your composure is your soul? What if the mask itself is the source of your suffering? It's a cruel irony. We build a wall to keep out the pain, only to discover we've imprisoned ourselves inside. It's not the world that's judging you, it's the shadow within you, casting its judgment from a hidden room inside your very being. And you're stuck in the middle, looking in the mirror at a stranger. To break free, you must first confront what lies behind the mask. The journey will be painful, undoubtedly, but the alternative is far worse. A hollow ache that never lets you rest. A life of quiet despair. You're ready to start now? You have the courage to face your own shadow. The next step lies ahead. That mask, it's a prison of your own making. A gilded cage, perhaps, but a cage nonetheless. And the bars. They're forged from fear, fear of rejection, fear of vulnerability, fear of not being enough. God, how well I know that fear. It's a chilling echo of what Jung called the shadow self, that submerged part of our psyche, containing all the aspects of ourselves we've deemed unacceptable, too dark, too dangerous to confront. Think of it like this: you're an iceberg, a magnificent, imposing structure visible above the waves. That's your persona, the image you project to the world. But beneath the surface, unseen, lies a vast, hidden mass of ice, your shadow. And that unseen mass exerts a gravitational pull, shaping your actions, influencing your choices, even if you're utterly unaware of its presence. I remember Arthur, a 70-year-old surgeon in Boise, Idaho, outwardly successful, respected, admired. But privately, he harbored a ferocious rage, a bitterness he'd suppressed for decades. That rage manifested as a crippling anxiety, a constant knot of tension that stole the joy from his days. He couldn't understand it. He was, after all, successful. But success wasn't protecting him from his own shadow. The shadow wasn't about evil, it was about the parts of himself he'd denied, the anger, the frustration, the grief he'd buried deep within for the sake of his idealized image. It wasn't about becoming a monster, but about becoming a man. It wasn't about the fear, it was about the fear of the fear. The shadow isn't some monstrous entity lurking in the darkness, it's the buried, forgotten parts of your humanity. It's the unlived life, the unexpressed emotions, the potential unfulfilled. All the things you've deemed unworthy, too risky to expose. To truly integrate the shadow isn't about vanquishing it, but about embracing it, recognizing its power, understanding its wisdom, and integrating its energy into your conscious life. Until you do, you are only half a man, living a life of quiet desperation, a magnificent performance played out in a silent theater where only you know the bitter taste of the truth. It's an act of immense courage, confronting that darkness, but it's the only path to true freedom. The path to finding the person behind the mask. Are you ready to begin? The courage, it's not about some grand heroic gesture. It's the quiet, almost imperceptible shift in perspective. It's the willingness to look into the abyss, not with fear, but with a detached curiosity. Because facing it, truly seeing it, that's where the power lies. You're not broken, you were never taught the truth. You were taught to build a mask, a persona, a life performance brilliantly staged to avoid the pain. And it worked for a while, but the performance takes its toll. It bleeds you dry. The emptiness, that hollow ache, it's the price of that deception. The silent scream of a soul yearning to be free. Think of it like this. The persona is a carefully constructed dam holding back the floodwaters of your true self. And that dam, as sturdy as it seems, is always at risk of breaking. The pressure mounts, the cracks appear, and eventually the flood comes. The weight of that dam, the years spent maintaining the illusion, the constant performance, it's exhausting. And the terrible truth is that this exhausting work only creates the very emptiness you dread. The irony is almost unbearable. This is not about self-improvement, it's about self-discovery. It's about reintegrating the fragmented pieces of your soul, bringing the shadow self into the light. Not erasing it, that's impossible, but accepting it, understanding its origins, and integrating its strength into your life. The anger, the vulnerability, the desires you've suppressed, those aren't weaknesses. They are parts of you, vital elements of a fully realized being. A 70-year-old architect in Santa Fe, burdened by the expectations of his family, built a persona of unflappable success, only to find himself crippled by loneliness. A 55-year-old physician in Charleston, constantly seeking validation, wore the mask of the ever-competent professional, unaware of the crippling self-doubt gnawing at his core. A 68-year-old rancher in Montana, stoic and silent, hid his grief behind a facade of rugged individualism until the silence almost broke him. These are not isolated cases, they are reflections of a larger truth. The silence, let it hang for a moment. The choice is yours. Remain in the prison of the persona, forever enacting your carefully crafted role, or face the difficult, beautiful work of self-discovery and integration. The path isn't easy. There will be pain, doubt, moments of unbearable vulnerability. But on the other side of that darkness lies something far greater, the strength of authenticity, the quiet power of a life truly lived. The quiet strength of someone who knows what it means to embrace the darkness and to emerge transformed. The hollow ache, it becomes the wellspring of your power.